This NFC North win totals and preview edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast is presented by MyBookie.ag. Sports are back, and MyBookie is now offering a 100% deposit bonus when you use the promo code SGP. That's MyBookie.ag, promo code SGP to play, win, and get paid. We're also brought to you by the leaders in daily fantasy, DraftKings. Download the DraftKings app and use the promo code SGP to play free with your first deposit today. Compete for millions of dollars in total prizes up for grabs this week. That's promo code SGP to get a shot at millions of dollars in prizes all week long, only at DraftKings. We're also brought to you by BetQL. Want to get an advantage over the sportsbook with NBA, NHL, and MLB back in action? You need to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets this season. Head to betql.co and enter code SGP20 for 20% off your first subscription. That's betql.co, promo code SGP20. Finally, we're brought to you by Ace Per Head. Ace is the leader in pay per head providers, and they make it super easy to start your own sportsbook. Plus, Ace is offering up to 6 weeks free over at aceperhead.com/SGP. That's aceperhead.com/SGP. Ooh, welcome everyone to the Sports Gambling Podcast. I'm Sean, stacking the money green with my partner in picks, Ryan, Real Money Kramer. What's happening, Kramer?
You really hate it when other people shake the table.
Why was I shaking the table?
We're talking
I'm
football.
Fired up.
It's okay to shake the table when we're talking football. I got paper in front of me.
You do. You're always very proud of your paper notes, Ryan.
I mean, look, I'm a guy who likes the environment, except for before football season.
Yes,
I like to write down. I still make cheat sheets for the Super Bowl that are handwritten.
I do that
March
too.
Madness, handwritten. Yeah, we're old guys now, Sean. That's the way it works.
Well,
you do old guy stuff. I haven't. All right. I told myself this is a 2020 goal. I'm not doing some virtual and what's that say, Sean? Football 2020. This is
there
where
you go.
This is at the end of the season I'll sign this and we'll give it out as a prize. But this is my 2020 gambling manifesto. I'm putting all these notes down so I can reference them later. I know if I put them in the damn robot computer machine, I'm never gonna go back to them.
Very unlike you, Ryan. Normally you're encouraging everyone to put their stuff in digitally, organizing digitally. A rare sticking to pen and paper.
You know, I think I'm going to dial back the clock. You know, I think we need to go back to a simpler time, Sean.
Simpler time before we had all these sweet division previews, before we had Monday Night Madden.
That's going to be exciting.
We just debuted Monday Night Madden. We're going to be doing Madden Sims every Monday night until the season starts, and then we'll adjust the time, but still do one sim of the Monday night game before the actual Monday night game. And you can check that out. 5 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Pacific for the late games. Monday Night Madden. We of course got our new soccer podcast feed. Our new NBA gambling podcast feed. Just Google those and plug it in the
Champions
Apple Podcasts.
League going on right now. So definitely want to tune in, subscribe to the Soccer Gambling Podcast for the Champions League final preview that's going to be coming out later this week with Billy Bahate. NBA. I mean, well, of course you got to tune in. I'm sure. I don't know this to be a fact, but I'm sure Zach and Ryan, what's his nickname? Rich Fat Baby McKee. I'm sure they told you to bet the Magic on the money line against the Bucks.
Oh, everyone was pounding that Magic money line. Wow, what a crazy.
Which, again, as you mentioned, Sean, new feed, NBA gambling podcast. A lot of people coming back for football season are probably wondering, where's all my NBA content? Well, that's where you can find it.
It's a whole separate feed. Just put in NBA gambling podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever great podcasts are
Golf
download.
Guru, they're dabbling a little podcasting with the legendary, probably the oldest fan of the podcast.
Boston Capper and Steve Shermer doing a golf gambling podcast. We got that going too. Just so much free content.
How much?
How much?
How much does that cost?
Completely free, Ryan. And as if that wasn't enough. Besides all the free content we're giving you, we're also giving you a chance for a free deposit bonus over at MyBookie.ag, the presenting sponsor of the podcast. You head over to MyBookie.ag, use that promo code SGP for 100% deposit bonus. They got it all. NBA in-game wagering. I know I took advantage of that the other night. Got the Clippers at a sweet price when they were down big against the Mavs. Thank you, refs, for tossing KP.
Hello.
NFL win totals, NFL prop bets, of course, all our Madden sims. You can only bet over at mybookie.ag, but tons and tons of, really regular season wins, player props, all the win totals you'll be hearing, all that you can grab over at mybookie.ag.
Yes, sir.
And again, plenty of NBA, NHL, MLB going off all the time. Plenty of double headers. Our boy Will Mormon giving out the free baseball picks. But mybookie.ag, where all you got to do is play, win, and then you get paid.
Get paid.
Kramer, it's that time of year too. Besides football being back, it also means the Freeroll Football Contest will be coming back. And
hello,
when we discuss the Bears, which coming up, we will be joined by Reid. He's the founder.
Rothschild?
No, not Rothschild.
No.
And Reid, of course, main
that
guy.
Guy's got a massive cock. I wonder if this Reid has a massive cock.
We'll have to ask him. He is a Bears fan, so of course I'm sure we will be hearing the
long cocks
drop while discussing Big Dick Nick and Nick Foles and whether or not he's going to take over, when he's going to take over for poor Mitchell. But that's coming up, so stay tuned for that. We're going to start off with the Vikings, but before we get to the Vikings and our special guest for that part of the podcast, quick shout out to DraftKings. You know, the regular season is fun when it comes to the NBA, but man, playoffs, a whole nother deal. As I've been finding out, Sixers, tough break, but Embiid, pretty nice DraftKings performance. My boy, Freddie Van Vliet putting up 60 DK points.
Holla.
No better place to start making it rain than over at DraftKings. Use that promo code SGP. Get a free chance to win millions of dollars in prizes throughout the week. Just got to download that DraftKings app, enter the promo code SGP, and man, playoff NBA DFS super fun. You know what else is super fun, Ryan? I've been cranking them out left and right. These
haven't.
DraftKings best ball lineups I'm hooked.
Sean, what did I tell you? Last season, I was like, bro, you got to join the revolution. It's fun.
Well, it wasn't on DraftKings.
I know,
yet, Ryan.
but now that it's here,
and now I was waiting for DraftKings because, as you know, I won $200,000 in DraftKings, and I'm gonna do it again.
You still got a balance, huh?
Yes. Download the DraftKings app and use the promo code SGP to play free with your first deposit today. Compete for millions of dollars in total prizes up for grabs this week. It's promo code SGP to get a shot at millions of dollars in prizes all week long, only at DraftKings. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. Joining us on the line, comedian and host of Sports Center on Snapchat. You know him from that. Cy Amundson. Cy, how's it going, man?
Hey fellas, it's fun to be on the show. I have a severe gambling problem, and you guys are one of my lifebloods during the NFL season. So now I can help lead people astray.
Well, you are amongst friends here. This is a safe place. We also, at this point, I think Sean and I are north of a couple dozen bets on the NFL season already.
Well, yeah, and I know it's perfect timing to bring you on, talk Minnesota Vikings. I know you're a big Vikings guy. You're even doing some work for the Vikings. What was Minnesota's take and just the Vikings take in general on last season? I mean, kind of a big step up, got into the playoffs, but really that win in New Orleans, that was pretty big, I think, for the Vikings and for Kirk Cousins' legacy. We always like to kind of bust Cousins' chops on the program, but how do you kind of recap last year?
Well, first I have to tell you that I started working for the Vikings, so it's been really interesting to be close. And I'm also a psychopath fan, so I just like roam the halls of the facility, and everybody there is used to that shit, and I'm just a lunatic all the time. And it's also meant that, when you work for an NFL team, especially in content, you're not supposed to gamble on the league anymore. So last year was like the first year starting second half of the season where I didn't gamble. And it was really weird. So I just kind of watched the team as a team for the first time in, I don't know, fucking 20 years. And I think you guys hit it on the head. It was a really weird year because the defense was kind of, you knew they were nearing a change. You had a lot of veterans like Xavier Rhodes and Everson Griffin, guys who were like cornerstone pieces, like the exact sort of pieces that make a Mike Zimmer defense work. And Linval Joseph too. You know, those three guys were kind of at their end. And so you had like one last hurrah available. And so I think there was a lot of hope that maybe things would fall together, but it was a pretty tough schedule. You know, they were playing a pretty tough schedule, and it just didn't come together on offense like they wanted it to. And you know, I am a Kirk Cousins fan. I think you have to be as a Vikings fan, but the criticism that everybody levies out is something I've always felt. You know, I've always said, he's got this money now. He's got this contract. He's the sort of guy who we're going to get a fucking answer. You know, these last couple of years, like there will be no debate about Kirk Cousins after his tenure with the Vikings is done. It'll be some pretty concrete shit. And my hope is that even though now we've transitioned to a young defense and we're relying on a lot of youth and inexperience on that side, I'm really hoping that, because when he threw that touchdown to Kyle Rudolph against the Saints, when he won that game, and more importantly than that, when he delivered that dagger to Thielen on the play before.
Oh man, that was a hell of a ball.
It was an incredible ball. And it was kind of like the exact shit people said he couldn't do. And so I think a lot of people here and, you know, fans probably within the organization are hoping that is a jumping off point. And I don't know what the answer is. I like to believe maybe that'll help him with some confidence and he won't press in the same weird ways that he has before in crucial moments. I guess only the season will tell, but I think if you're going to really rely on the Vikings in terms of what you're doing, you have to believe that moment will roll Kirk Cousins forward, because the truth is they've now built everything around him, right? They Stefanski leaves and they put Gary Kubiak there. Gary Kubiak, who is the master of the play action. I mean, he's probably the only coach who gave Joe Flacco a good season as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean that should get him into the Hall of Fame. You know, that season alone.
Yeah, that's as it goes in just on his bust. It doesn't even say his name. It just says Joe Flacco's stats for that one season.
No, I mean, but you're right. I mean, bringing in Kubiak, that kind of is the way to go. It seems like. Now, I'm sure you're following it closer, but it seems like they'll probably run a similar system to Stefanski, where it's not a lot of spread you out, you know, 3 receiver set. It's a lot of get the running game going, get the play action going, give Kirk some throws.
I mean, it's
that are in his wheelhouse.
I would imagine it will be very similar to what he ran early in his career in Washington. That was a very Shanahanian.
Yeah,
is that a word? Offense with McVay over there. But yeah, I mean, as a fan, as someone who rooted for Eli Manning for many years, I understand the position you're put in. You have to root for this guy, because if you join the ship of haters, which I know Vikings fans for the most part, Midwestern, it's very soccer momish, right? Like very happy for the team, always want to be supportive. But Kirk Cousins has put y'all in a situation where you're now stuck between a rock and a hard place, because while on one hand, I love this guy, I love that he's bet on himself repeatedly. I love that he has shown moxie in situations. He just hasn't done it yet. And could this be a breaking off point? Potentially. But the concern, I think, is shipping Diggs out of town. I think you were maybe getting to this, but that it sends a really strong message. Kirk Cousins is the guy. Well, we believe Zimmer can rebuild the defense. I think I'm as a distant fan, I do too. But to me, like Diggs mattered to that offense, and I feel like there's a little bit of pressure here now on Kirk Cousins, because he clearly facilitated that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, to respond to your soccer mom thing, there are so many fucking hicks in this state that when their football team doesn't win, you do not want to wind up near them at a gas station. So you know, I know you guys are Eagle fans, where you're like, well, let's beat the quarterback to death, but it's not all love here no matter what.
There's some psychos in Minnesota.
Yeah, but what I will say is, dude, I think you're exactly right. I think the one thing also before I get to Diggs that people don't realize about Gary Kubiak is because they always link him to the running game. And this guy was like 6 out of 12 years, his passing offense was top 10 in the league as an offensive coordinator in yards, 7 out of 12 in touchdowns. He loves the run, but exactly like you said, it's Shanahan-y, and he uses it to set everything up. And to further on the Diggs thing, you're right. Everything we're talking about here, and I love Stephon Diggs. I was actually really nervous that they were going to trade him, and when they did, I originally hated it, but the return was just so good. It was just so much shit that you especially after DeAndre Hopkins went for a fucking sack of broccoli.
Yeah, mean, you'd much rather what you guys got than like David Johnson.
I mean, it was what
David
they
Johnson's
needed.
contract.
It was exactly what they needed with the cap hell that they're in and with the complete turnover of the defense. So it made a lot of sense. But I do think it kind of pushes Cousins to be like, all right, you got what you wanted. Let's go now.
I don't think it even pushes him. I think he's pushed. I don't know how after this year, there will be a discussion even. There will either be a yes or a no, a correct or an incorrect, a good or a bad. I mean, they have built a play action offense around him. He's got the sort of weapons he likes. They're going to do the things that he enjoys as a quarterback and that helps him thrive. He doesn't have any adversarial. Everybody is supporting him. That locker room is really, really strong, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And to your other point, this is a very young defense with young defensive backs, young guys filling space on the defensive line. So Kirk needs to be that guy. He finally got over the hump in the playoffs last year. It's either going to be yes or no. We're either going to look, if a season happens, we're either going to look back at this shit and go, that was a great year, Kirk did it, or we won't. I will say the one hindrance in that is we've had offensive line ups and downs here for a long time. And, but we got some young guys, and that's the one thing where it could go a little off the rails. If the offensive line isn't able to progress a little bit like we're all hoping they will with these young guys, then there might be a little wiggle room there. But if the offensive line comes to play, it's either going to be yes or no after this year on how he performs. And Sean, I think it'll be a yes, but.
And Sean, the last time the Vikings had a positive DVOA on offense back-to-back years, 2003, 2004. So they are up against it. They are up against history.
Well, yeah, because they're coming off that positive year, and you kind of alluding the whole COVID situation. It'll be interesting to see the no fans in the stands, or at least limited fans. It looks like some places are going to have some fans. Minnesota's in a dome.
You gotta let the Viking guy in, right?
Yeah, just let that guy in with his giant horn and just him alone doing the skull chant. But it'll be interesting because Minnesota had a great, they've always had a great home record, especially under Zimmer. I mean, since I got a stat here, since 2016, 24-9 straight up, but also 21-9-3 against the spread, 70% at home, which is, I mean, you wonder as a bettor, especially will the limited fans, whatever, will that take away?
I still think there's the awe factor of that stadium. Like it's the number one stadium that I want to go check out. It just looks so cool. I do wonder if there's still a little bit of an impact there for the visiting player, thinking they're in a spaceship or something.
It does look like a spaceship just landed in Minneapolis.
It is an incredible building. It is. And when you're down on the field, like just feel like you just feel almost like you're playing football in the future. I know that's corny, but it is just a bizarre, incredible building. This market is really weird because they love sports here, but the Vikings are so laughably head and shoulders above every other organization. Most fans in this state would rather talk about preseason football than playoff baseball. It's fucking crazy. And so I think there's just this intensity in that stadium. And I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like without fans. I don't know if, I can see it having a major effect because it's a really difficult place to play. And also, just as a side note, that Viking dude, the mascot who rips in on his motorcycle, he looks like COVID. Like that guy just literally, you can't let that dude on the field. He looks like a cartoon version of COVID.
Well, yeah. And instead of pillaging like innocent villagers, he's pillaging your immune system by destroying it.
Weren't the Vikings one of the teams that I thought came out and said that they were very invested in the idea of having some fans in the stadium this year?
I don't know. I haven't kept track of that. I mean, it would be great to see some of those fans, but even I think it's really like full capacity, packed house. Even as an Eagles fan, when we played there last year, you're just kind of dreading going into that because they can't hear the count.
I forgot when you were off in Minnesota playing for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, you know what I mean. It's running out that stadium. It is kind of intimidating. And then the other side of that is true. I was kind of shocked to see this nugget I came across. Since 2016, the Vikings outdoors against a winning team are 15-1 straight up and against the spread, which is surprising because Zimmer's a good coach, but yeah, outdoors against winning teams. I mean, again, on the road against a winning team, but you throw that outdoor angle and yeah, I mean, that's something maybe to look at as we get through, picking some of these games.
Yeah,
they've long. Go ahead, dude.
No, I was just going to throw out, just piling on things to look at in the schedule. Only a couple prime time games, I think, or maybe 2 that qualify as actual prime time. So that's good considering Cousins' track record in the big game.
Are Vikings fans buying into the Kirk Cousins doesn't do well in prime time? Do they kind of criticize him for that, or is that just something outsiders bust his chops for?
Shit like that is. I think there's some reality in it. It's the smoke, there's fire. The fan base is pretty split down the middle on him. I think when that stuff gets rolling, it's a lot of jerk offery. Booger McFarland riding around on a fucking cart on the sideline and shit, throwing some stat. Like the truth is, when you really you guys know this, when you really break down quarterbacks' records in like difficult situations, none of them are great or generally, and so I think it deserves to be criticized but certainly not to the extent that it is. And I think that's what the fan base is at. It's half this fan base is like, we get it, but he just won a playoff game that he shouldn't. Let's fucking just ride with it. And everybody else is worrying,
Yeah. And
it's the syndrome of it could be way, way worse, guys. Yeah. Everyone relax. Like Kirk Cousins is pretty dang good. You could end up with Mitchell Trubisky.
Well, and let me give you this pitch here. I'm not trying to be a homer, but there is a world where it clicks, man. There is a world where he has an offense. Like if you can actually protect him and he has these weapons, Kirk is the sort of dude where I remember there was this game against the Green Bay Packers 2 seasons ago when he first came to the team, and there was none of that negative bullshit energy that existed with the Redskins, with the Washington football team.
Yeah, there you go.
And thank you. And we were down to the Packers at half by like a pretty ridiculous amount, and then he just came out and said fuck it and just started slinging and made like 3 of the best throws I saw all season. And then he just kind of, for a couple games, he built and he kind of steamrolled. And I think that's the sort of guy he is. So if you're looking at the Vikings and they win week 1 against the Packers, because that is an intense game to start the season. But if he goes out and he throws up 380 and 3 or 4 touchdowns in the opener and beats Green Bay, and then they do it again week 2, he's the sort of dude who could steamroll, and all of a sudden they could be outplaying the spread all year long.
You know who he kind of reminds me of, and you say it all clicks, and I was trying to think of like a reference point, kind of maybe similar to Matt Ryan, where Matt Ryan kind of just like a good quarterback, a solid quarterback. No one was ever like, this is the guy, but he's a guy that you pay because he's good enough and you don't want to get rid of him. And then he just almost out of nowhere, he has that MVP season. Maybe there is a world where you're right. Like it kind of all clicks for Kirk. He has certainly the talent and certainly a bunch of weapons around him. I mean, losing Diggs, I think will hurt them a little bit. The defense,
you nailed it. It's the you have to pay these guys tier.
Yeah, certainly. And the defense, you mentioned a lot of the guys they lost.
Oh man,
I mean, it is just
a lot of good players, a lot of starters, a lot of good players there.
I gotta tell you guys though, like this might not be the year. This might not be a Super Bowl year for the Minnesota Vikings. You know, I'm a fan, so I'm gonna walk around and tell people that like I'm an idiot all year. That's just what I do. I actually believe that. But for Mike Zimmer's entire run with the team, it's always been this dominant defense with these veteran studs and an offense that was trying to play catch up. And now that shit's flipped. And I actually think that's ideal for the team. Everybody's looking at that like it's a problem. Mike Zimmer is the best cornerbacks coach of probably the last 2 or 3 decades. So you have 2 stud safeties. Anthony Harris is the most underrated football player in the league. You have 2 absolute stud players at safety, and you can now take these young cornerbacks and let the best teacher in the game grow them. You kind of have what they had in Seattle when they had those stud safeties, and all of a sudden they grew these young cornerbacks, and here comes Richard Sherman, and you're pretty incredible pretty quick on not a lot of money. And they have this incredible defensive line coach as well, who's now their co-defensive coordinator. He got bumped up this year. So I think an ideal situation for the Vikings is younger, cheaper talent on defense that get coached up and grown, because that's Zimmer's whole MO, and money on the offensive side. So people might have their expectations in the wrong place because of that shit, because I loved Xavier Rhodes, and I loved Everson Griffin, and I loved Linval Joseph. But especially Xavier and Linval, those guys were cornerstones of what made that a top 5 defense. They weren't that last year. They just weren't that anymore. So I think it might be kind of underrated to be in that situation.
Yeah, and maybe this ends up being a transition year, or maybe they're a team that you look to, like, you know, start betting on Sean, in the second half.
They have Harry the Hitman back there.
Yeah.
We can't forget him.
Wait, oh, dude, he dominated in the Madden Sims. Just one force fumble after another. It's insane. And I mean, I'll speak for Kramer. We're huge Zimmer fans on the podcast. I love seeing his setup for the draft. It's just like him.
Yeah.
And then they're just like 3 deer heads on the mantle.
Just the opposite of whatever those millennial Sean McVay and
yeah, really. He's like sneaking off doing some dip, and then Sean McVay's like, you know, letting a rosé uncork on his pool patio or whatever you call it.
Yeah,
but yeah,
he literally had to finish the draft so he could film a cameo for fucking Yellowstone. It was, and every Minnesotan is so like rurally proud.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if there were guys that just edged up to the moment that they saw him and like, that's the stuff. That's the stuff. Look at his fireplace.
He does seem like the perfect coach for the Vikings.
He's the best.
All right.
He is the best. And I was going to say, let me give you one other thing too, that the COVID season is going to be weird, man. The thing that exists in Minnesota that doesn't exist anywhere else in that division is a long-standing consistency. You know, you've got a GM and this head coach who've been there for like 7 years now, but it's not just them. It's every aspect of their staff. You know, a lot of these assistant coaches, Patterson and Kubiak's been there a few years. It's such a well-run organization top to bottom, and it's gone without much change for a while. And I think the teams like that don't have a lot of change and a lot of upheaval, that's where, if I still gambled, guys,
yeah,
that is where I would be paying attention.
#Legends only.
And Sean, 11 last 5 years, 11 wins, 8 wins, 13 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins. Talk about consistency. No, they haven't won less than eight games.
No, there's and especially when he was talking about his ability to coach guys up and maybe even almost benefiting from a younger core. It kind of reminded me shades of Pete Carroll and his consistency out there in the NFC West.
Zimmer greater than Carroll for coaches in my book.
Well, and also Zimmer doesn't believe that 9/11 was an inside job like Pete Carroll. So another nod
I was going to say he's
Zimmer's
not a
favor.
truther, yeah.
All right, should we walk?
Zimmer's a very rational guy.
Yeah, I don't think Pete Carroll has any antlers in his office.
No.
Probably just a lot of books, a lot of white papers. All right, let's walk through this schedule. Vikings, they open, as you stated, with the Packers at home, at Indy. Week 2, week 3, Tennessee at home, and week 4 at Houston. Not too much to be alarmed with there, other than a couple non-conference road games. I don't know how I feel about that stacked up so early in the season. I mean, they play the whole division of the AFC South here. This is a weird segment.
I like it a lot because everything hinges on that first game, man, because that's such a tone setter. But if you can beat the Packers, I would rather get Phillip Rivers early in the season, and you pop those first 2 off the top, you might be 4-0, and like you said, have some uncomfortable road games out of the way.
Yeah, I'll go 3-1. I'll go 3-1. I am a little nervous about this young defense with the limited training camp and not a ton of reps.
Corners tend to take a little bit more time to develop. Some of the better corners will have kind of
rough rookie,
tough early
first
years.
Half, yeah.
It helps to have that safety kind of. The guys behind them are definitely going to help, and just the overall coaching of Zimmer. But that would be my concern, and why I'm going to be a little less bullish than you guys. I'm going to say 2-2. Because I do think they opened the season with a win.
I'm gonna say 3-1, and in fairness, because I've been a bit of a homer here, Zimmer's cornerback style is a really difficult style to learn. Xavier Rhodes is with the Colts now, and he was like, "It's way easier here, man," because his shit's very difficult to learn. And on the D line, they're without Michael Pierce because of the COVID opt out. So. Yeah. I should point those things out. So yeah, I'm gonna go 3-1 to start if they can get that Packer game.
Next up, Sean, they have a Sunday night football. I don't think this can be flexed. Sunday night football at Seattle.
You're already trying to help Kirk out. I don't think we can flex.
Maybe they can flex this guy out. Then they get Atlanta at home, a bye at Green Bay, Detroit at home. I got to be honest. My early takeaways to this schedule is it just seems tough. It seems like this is going to be a tough schedule. I've not seen that like easy bye week yet, Sean. I'm just gonna sit kind of in neutral here. And while I think Detroit will be better this year, I think they win that game too. Let's say 2-2 again.
Yeah, 2-2 makes sense. I think that Seattle game is going to be super tough, and then
prime time.
Maybe split the division games there. I'm down on the Falcons this year. We'll get to them later in the preview series, but Cy, interesting block here, early-ish bye week, but then you're playing the Packers off the bye. That's got to help a little bit. What do you got them going there?
I'm not as scared of the Seahawks early as you guys are. I would way rather play the Seahawks week 5 than week 13, like we have.
Yeah, they are a second half team.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm going to sound like a psychopath here. If the defensive line consistently puts pressure on teams at the start of the season, if they are getting 2 quarterbacks, no shit, this could be a 7-1, and if they're not, it's a 4-4. So I'm going to be a psycho, and I'm going to put it at 7-1. I think they're going to get that Seattle game. Seattle, they have let multiple prime time Monday Night Football Seattle games slip right through the fucking grips of their fingers the last couple years, and I think they got that one circled. And like you said, Seattle's not ready early. I think I'm gonna put it at 7-1.
I like the confidence.
I'm gonna fall apart in the second half of the season, but I'm gonna put it at 7-1.
Sean, next 4 at Chicago on Monday Night Football. Dallas at home, Carolina at home, Jacksonville at home. This is the easy stretch of the schedule. Hard for me to see them. I mean, they're winning the Jacksonville game. They're winning the Carolina game. Fuck the Cowboys. So, Agreed. Zimmer knows how to do something with McCarthy. And then, Trubisky, Foles, the Bears. I don't know. We'll train wreck potential here. I'm tempted to go 4. I'm going to say 3-1.
Yeah, I'll go 3-1. I like the spot there for them. 3 primetime games in a 3 home games in a row. And of course you got that one primetime game, but again, in Chicago, that's going to be a tough spot regardless. Division game Monday night. That's always going to be a difficult spot, but 3-1 makes sense. So yeah. What do you got for this 4 game block side?
Here's a big secret for your listeners. It doesn't matter what the Vikings record is and what the Bears record is. They struggle in Chicago always. Ever since, I can't remember, even when Favre was there, they had that amazing year and shit the bed in Chicago. Even if they win, it's always by below the spread. I think that's a terribly difficult game. I actually hate the Dallas game with Everson Griffin down there. And I hate Teddy Bridgewater coming back to the Dome.
Oh, I didn't think about this.
I hate all that shit. And to even out my homerism, I'm going to go 1-3 through that stretch.
You know what? I'm going to amend to 2-2. There's also the potential of just Minshew coming to town and just laying waste to all the ladies. And
all right. Well, Cy convinced me that I was a little high. Knock me down to 2-2.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. This is good. We're having a good group therapy session here at Tampa later in the season. So
not as hot. That's good.
Chicago at home at New Orleans. Friday game, Sean. This is a Friday Christmas Day game. So not prime time. Yep. And then at Detroit, interesting game. And could that be a game for a playoff spot, Sean?
Well, certainly with 7 playoff spots, you think if the Vikings are kind of in the mix, that could be something.
That's a tough close of the season here. Boy, I'm gonna go 1-3.
Wow. All right. I'm gonna say they finished strong. I know this is a tough part of the schedule, but give me 3-1. I don't know how they do it.
You just want to be high on this.
Nah,
team, I understand.
They feel like a 10-6 team.
Okay.
Cy, what do you got them going here? Last 4.
I'm going to go 2-2. I think we all are, I think, concerned about the Bucks. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like we're going to beat Tom Brady and Gronk just because they're in fucking Tampa Bay. Well, and we have this long, weird history with the New Orleans Saints. And as much as, we look forward to playing them, I think we're always circled for we are always circled for them as well. So I'm going to go 2-2. I think they get both those division games and finish that 2-2.
So you guys are both, if I'm doing the math right, you're both at 10-6, Sean. The Vikings, of course, went 10-6 last year. The win total was 9 last year. It's 9 this year. 115 both ways. Plus 165 to win the division. Plus 1400, 14-1 to win the conference, and 28-1 to win the Super Bowl over at MyBookie. Sean, I have them going 7-9. Maybe I should have held strong with that 3-1 over the third quarter of the season, but I'm actually okay with this projection because I do think as we were going through the schedule, I was like, boy, we're putting a lot of faith that this defense is going to be ready to go right away. And that was I think it's a big reason why if this team has a year, it's because Zimmer's a god and he got this defense flipped around real quick.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm leaning on is Zimmer's ability to kind of rally them. I mean, similar, in March Madness where we always like the good coaches on that short turnaround, the limited practice schedule or what, like the coach who won on Thursday and then plays again on Saturday. You want to lean to the good coaches, and I think maybe this year, out of all the years, coaching is really going to make a difference. So for that reason, I'm kind of leaning into Zimmer. But yeah, division at plus 165, conference 1400. I don't know. None of those are really talking to me. The playoff odds via Odds Shark to make the playoffs is minus 135. To miss the playoffs is plus 105. So that makes me feel good about my projection because 10 wins you're in now. Like 10 wins a lock with 7 playoff teams now. So I think if you get to 10, you're in. Well, and I think instead of because the win total's at 9, I would rather make playoffs at minus 135 than the over 9 at minus 115. Cause I think there's a ton of scenarios where they get 9 wins and get into the playoffs.
I'm with you there. And I guess I would go a step further. I probably should make this projection not 8-8. Obviously they haven't gone under 500 in some time, but I'm going to stick to 7-9. I'm going to say that this division, little bit of depression here. I think they're still going to be in the mix.
I mean, this division should be pretty competitive.
And for the win total, I'm taking the under because I I fancy them to not be a double-digit win team this year. So I'm playing that angle, Sean. They got to get 10 to beat me.
So Cy, you're over on the win total, but what about division, conference?
Theoretically,
Super Bowl?
he would be
hypothetically. If you were to hypothetically wager on this, any sort of leans.
In theory,
yes.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose hypothetical units.
It's interesting because I hadn't walked through the schedule like this yet, and I knew it was an insanely hard schedule. I think everything's the first 4 games will tell you everything you need to know. You guys are right. If they come out and that defense isn't ready to go by week 2, just fucking slate them for 6 or 7 wins. I just think that's absolute reality. But I don't hate 165 for the division, and mainly because I watched this division all year last year. The Vikings got a lot of tough breaks. They got a lot of bad plays at inopportune times. They had a number of games that, if we really believe Kirk is going to step up, that he should have won those games. And I think there were 2 or 3 games last year where we had the ball, end of the game, had a chance to put it away, couldn't get it done. So if you believe Kirk stepped forward, and then you also fuck the Packers, man.
Yeah,
that team had 11 horseshoes up their big Wisconsin ass last year, and they got every. Everything comes back to the middle, right? There's no way the Packers' schedule is going to be as easy as it was last year. There's no way they're going to get all the calls and benefits they got last year. I think their bounces come back this way, and ours go more towards them. So I would have put the Vikings at even money with the Packers to win the division. And as much as I love this team and would like to see them in the Super Bowl, there's no fucking way I would put any money on them winning the conference. If being a fan of this team for all this time has told me anything, it is very simply, don't think they're going to go to the Super Bowl, or you'll wind up as an adult man crying at the end of January.
Yep. Blair Walsh will fuck it up for you.
Blair Walsh, fucking Gary Anderson, who gives a shit? It's all the same.
Well, Cy, appreciate you calling in. Where can people check you out?
I'm on Twitter at Cy Amundson. I do some sports stuff there. We have a sports podcast, but I'll be honest, guys, it's kind of dog shit. So, I have one of my good friends, Chad Daniels, and I have a comedy podcast. He's probably one of the best, if not the best, working comedians in America, and we just talk shit about our lives. So instead of stealing your fans to my dumb show, if they want some comedy, it's called Middle of Somewhere. It's just us talking about our lives.
Awesome.
Nice.
Make sure you check that out, Cy. Appreciate the time.
Skull.
Hey, you guys, I love the show. I'll talk to you soon.
BetQL, baby. NBA, NHL, MLB, all back in action. Said it before, I'm going to say it again. You need to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets this season. They got a best bets algorithm, scans thousands of data points, gives you a best bet recommendation for every game, and gives you the reasoning behind why you should take their best bets. I mean, Kramer, we're doing some best BetQL bet of the week videos. Those are going to be coming out on social. Stay tuned for those. But yeah, I mean, if you're playing MLB, NBA daily, you gotta.
Or if you just like looking at us,
exactly,
because we're pretty good looking.
Very cool to check out us, and make sure you download that app, BetQL. And if you want to get their premium stuff, we got a 20% off code. All you got to do is betql.co, enter code SGP20, 20% off your first subscription. Head to the App Store or Google Play Store to download BetQL. Joining us on the line, co-founder of BetSperts and a diehard Bears fan, Reid Rooney. Reid, what's happening, man?
And not too much. I thought I was on the wrong podcast when you guys just said how good looking you were.
Oh wow!
I apologize. It's not that I don't remember that so much. But
Kramer,
you know, so I understand the subjectivity of my good looks.
Kramer doesn't know why people download the podcast.
No, but thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. It's been a while, but happy to be back. And you're right, the Bears season right around the corner. I bet you the next however many minutes we don't talk about Bears quarterbacks at all. Right?
Well, and the last time we were starting a football season, we were watching the Bears and Packers.
Yes,
with Reid in beautiful Las Vegas before things went to shit.
Yes, that was
Nagy. Matt Nagy called 31 passes in a row when we only had 3 points. Yeah, let's bring that up. That's wonderful memories.
We did cover the spread with the Packers pick, but that was a not to rub it in, but that was an ugly game and an ugly start to the 2019 season. What was it? 10-3 opening game.
I remember feeling dirty.
That was kind of rough, but we brought you on to talk Bears, but also got some breaking news. That's right. The 2020 Freeroll Football Contest is back.
Oh yes.
Completely free to enter. That's why it's called the Freeroll Football Contest.
Again,
you're going to be making your picks through the BetSperts app. Very easy to do, but we're going to make it a little different this year. This year, because we love the subscribers so much, because they do so much for us. Subscribers only. So you have to be.
Wow. Wait. But how much does it cost? You told me it was free.
It's free.
How much does it cost to subscribe?
Subscribing to our podcast is also free, but we want to make sure a subscriber wins. So you go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest, fill out a little form, and then you'll get the information on how to enter the contest. If we get enough entries, the prize pool goes up to $5,000. 60% goes to first, 25% to second, 15% to third, and then 4 through 8 gets an item from the SGP merch page. So again, do your part in spreading the word about the contest so we can get this prize pool up, because we don't get if we get under 1,000, the prize pool is only 2,500. But I'm confident.
I think last
we
year
can get up to 5,000.
Yeah, come on.
Dollar prize pool and 1,500 entries. Again, sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest for the Freeroll Football Contest.
Sean, when we get on the Sims to do our Monday Night Madden, they're gonna eat this. They're gonna love BetSperts. They're gonna be like, "Hey, BetSperts, we need Madden data in here. We need the Madden spreads in here."
Yes, we are. We have been. I think Ryan and I have been doing a pretty good job handicapping these sim games. So maybe we will become BetSperts of the sim world. But people maybe new to the podcast, just give us kind of the elevator pitch of BetSperts and why people should download, regardless of whether or not they're entering the contest. But they're going to enter the contest.
Yeah, so it is also free to download, but it is right now the largest social media platform in all of North America dedicated to sports gambling. So you track your picks, a very granular level of reporting. So it gets all the way down to the team level, conference level, sports, bet type of your successes and failures with our mock sports book. And the biggest part of the entire platform is everyone's profile is transparent. The data is uneditable. So finally you have a place where you can track yourself, or you can see what other people are doing. And there's no way they can fudge the numbers. There's no way to change kind of previous picks or anything like that. So people's records are their records, and we stand behind that data.
So Vegas Dave will probably not be signing up at BetSperts.
Vegas Dave's business would be squashed pretty quickly if he was on BetSperts. And that's kind of the goal, to create kind of a network where you can follow other people. You get automatic notifications when they post or when they pick. If you follow them, create your own network, find maybe, for me, for an example, last year I was 4-13 with White Sox bets, and I'm a huge White Sox fan. So this year I'm starting to follow AL Central bettors and people who are a little bit less invested than I am with the success of one team. So I've already had some more success this year following my own kind of website and platform of what we're supposed to be doing. So
I like that you went back and watched the game tape on yourself.
Yeah. Self-scouting. I like that, Reid. No, it really is. I mean, besides being able to kind of find niche people who really have a good handle on, say, like, whatever, like MAC football when they were playing it, or just like kind of some random smaller markets. But it is good. It's a good look in the mirror of like, man, I don't know shit about Thursday night football. Why do I keep betting?
Well, you know
it?
what I just learned, because I'm looking at my profile and I love data. So obviously this place get the BetSperts, the app, especially the profile gets me a little chubbed up. Pac-12, I'm 10-2, including a 7 game winning streak. So I'm extra hot there. They got graphs, and most importantly, Sean, you can see how many followers. Which I forgot about this. We had a competition last year. I'm up to 116 followers. I don't know about Sean T. Green.
I'm logging into my profile.
I don't think you're at 116 like Big Dog over here. So, I will say, Reid, the interface is looking nice. It's looking real nice, and. Honestly, like we rolled our contest on this last year, and I started using it. And it objectively, if you enjoy keeping track of stuff, but don't actually want to put the energy into keeping track of it,
it's highly recommend good times. It. And the contest, it's easy to do. Again, just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest. You send in your little screenshot showing your subscriber, because it's subscribers only. We don't want these, these random bots or weirdos who aren't part of DGen only nation to be involved in the prize pool. Send that in, then you'll get a link to the BetSperts group or password, whatever it ends up being. So sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest. But now, Reid, we're here to talk about the Bears coming off a 8-8 season. And it just felt
didn't feel 8-8. It felt about 3-13.
Well, I think it was the Bears were like a team that just lined up for a ton of regression last year because of all the kind of crazy turnovers they had the year before, and kind of everything clicked, everything went right. Ton of turnover luck,
classic plexiglass
and
situation.
then you got Mitchell, you got some other issues and things. Kind of sum up the Bears in like one sentence for the listeners. Last year, I think the best way to sum it up is, as Bears fans, at least, we were blinded by the double doink as the only weakness. They did spend way too much time trying to figure out a kicker. It felt like that was like, we're going to get this right. We're going to, they had that competition where if you can hit a 37-yard field goal or whatever it was.
43, yeah. We missed Vic Fangio a lot more than we anticipated, I think, on the defensive end, and depth got tested a little bit, but it really all stems from Matt Nagy and his play calling on offense and what Mitch can and couldn't do last year. So for us, I think it was a transition year, and this is a make it or break it year for not only the offense, but the coaching staff and the general manager on down. So I'd say this year it's make it or break it. Last year was a bit of a transition regression. I think that was a good way to put it.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of interesting stuff. We'll get to Foles and Trubisky in a little bit, but
I brought some light reading.
Sure.
Because I obviously I like to remind anyone who will listen about how the Bears traded up to get their guy over Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. I do feel horrible because I have a soft spot in my heart for the Bears, but as I was reading the Chicago Bears chapter in the Football Outsider, they just absolutely captured everything about Mitchell Trubisky with this quote. It's when you start forcing him to make decisions on his own that things start to go south. And it's like starting quarterback in the NFL, Sean, when he was coming out, I was screaming as loud as I could. This guy was dog shit at UNC. He wasn't going to be good. And when the Bears drafted it felt like, this makes a lot of sense. Bears fans have been tortured, right? Jay Cutler is like the bright spot, and that's not necessarily a spot you want to be in. But now we come into a situation where everyone is putting all this energy behind Nick Foles. And the more I dove into this team, like the narrative to me became, I don't know if Nick Foles is the guy they should be clamoring for. And so I say all of that to say, Reid, as a guy who I'm sure is very optimistic going into this season, do you want Foles or do you want Trubisky?
Personally, I would like to see Mitchell for the start of the year. I think he's still a young guy. I don't think he's ever going to be top of the NFL. I do think with the right weapons on offense and the right system, he can be a serviceable quarterback. And once he gets confidence, you saw it in that playoff game. You've seen it on his better games. He plays well as the game continues to go on. he can't make his progressions, as it's well noted at this point. But I don't understand, and maybe it's just me personally, I don't understand all the love for Nick Foles in his career. I get that he won a Super Bowl, but he's never really been healthy. He's never been that great of a quarterback. He's a very serviceable and a very good person or a good guy to have right now. But I'd like to see Mitch, because I think there's more upside with a potential quick hook if it's not working out.
Well, also giant cock. You forgot that important attribute.
Cock.
Nick does bring that to the table, and I don't know if I was Mitch Trubisky, I would start circulating rumors that I actually had a bigger dick than Nick Foles, and maybe that would be enough to turn the locker room and the city of Chicago towards him.
They misheard him. Mitchell's actually his dick's name because it's longer.
I mean, I love Foles. What he did for the Eagles was amazing, but he certainly is a guy who's hot and cold. However, I do think the system the Bears run, and maybe getting back to the read options and that Matt Nagy offense, which is similar to some of the stuff that Doug P likes to run and that they switched to when Foles was in there. I think some of that stuff could work well for him, and getting Allen Robinson involved. I think for Mitchell, what really happened in 2018 to 2019, he wasn't, as what the kids say, Mitch Vick. No. We talk about him in the Madden Sims and his ability to run, and he runs all over the place in Madden. 2018, he had.
We've continued the streak of referencing a simulation between computers on Madden in a real preview of football.
I think there's something there though. But in 2018, he had 68 rush attempts for 421 yards. In 2019, he only had 48 attempts for 193 yards. And what happens is these quarterbacks, they're like, okay, I don't want to be a rushing quarterback. I don't want to be stereotyped as a rushing quarterback. But God damn it, when you run, you get first downs. You keep the chains moving. Like the 200 and whatever yard difference, like that adds up over the season. A lot of them are on third downs or to get a key first down. And Mitchell needs to help himself by running the ball. I think that's huge.
Trubisky has beaten Foles in DVOA every season.
Well, Foles is not a DVOA guy. He's a guy. If you look at like Pro Football Focus, he's had some of their highest graded games and some of their lowest graded games. Cause when he's hot, I mean, like
basically if you look at like his 2013 season and his postseason run with the Eagles, he was just hyper hot.
Yeah. Even some of 2018, going into that. So like he has moments where he can really get hot. And I think that's what people are buying into. So I think you're right. I think the move is, and again, I was pounding the table. This was like months ago to say, bet Mitchell Trubisky will be the starter week one, because they're going to, I mean, that's clearly the move. Like Nick is a guy, like once you go big Nick, you don't go back.
That's right.
And I think it just makes sense to like, give Mitchell another bit of time to try and figure it out.
So I got three things to that. One, when you say you go big Nick, you don't go back. The Jaguars didn't believe that last year.
That's also true.
Let's not forget.
And the Eagles actually did as well. So
I was to say,
it just sounds cool.
A rookie beat out Nick when he got hurt. Second thing, on the running side of it, if you remember, I can't remember, it was the Packers game or the game after, very early in the season last year, Mitchell got tackled awkwardly on his shoulder and was out for a game or two. And then I think he got a little gun shy running after. And I think that kind of caused some issues on play calling as well as decision making. And that hurt him on some of the runs. Third thing is, and you're not going to find a Chicago Bears fan that is lower on Matt Nagy than I am as an offensive play caller. I don't think he sets him up for a lot of opportunities for that running and for that decision making. So I think there needs to be that. And if Mitchell is going to be the starter, that's going to be a huge part of the game plan this year, or should be, because he's better at it than most. And I think it opens up some more lanes.
I mean, one last Mitchell thing, and then there's a lot of actual other stuff to talk about. When I heard that line about him getting upset that they had Bears talk radio on the TV or the inside the locker room, and he would like ask them to turn it off. That's just, you got to have a thick skin as a quarterback, and like admitting that it bothered you.
Say what you will about Eli Manning.
He certainly had a thick skin. I mean, everyone mocked that guy continuously, and he acted
2 times Super Bowl MVP.
He acted like it didn't affect him at all. Even if it does affect you, you can't let people know that it affects you. So that would be my advice to Mitchell is instead of asking people to turn it off, just be a badass and turn the TV off yourself.
Yeah.
What I gotta ask as just a random sidebar here. What the hell are the Bears doing with tight ends? I love tight ends, but they bring in Jimmy Graham, who got. I mean, I didn't really understand the signing. He's coming.
The whole chapter in the Football Outsiders is basically just a memoir shitting on Pace's ability to manage the cap.
Yeah. Why bring in Jimmy Graham at like not a good price? He wasn't doing much in Green Bay. At one point they had 9 tight ends on their roster.
In a vacuum, it's like, why bring in Jimmy Graham? And then especially, why did you bring in Jimmy Graham when you go and draft a tight end?
Cole Kmet, who I like, I'm high on. And then they have 7 other tight ends fighting for like the 3rd and 4th tight end spot. I get it. I love tight ends, former tight end. Love me some tight ends.
So many drops in here.
But what's going on with the tight ends in Chicago?
Are you gentlemen by a computer? I am not currently, but if you are, I would appreciate if you would be able to look up how many yards the leading tight end of the Bears had last year in receiving yards. I believe it's almost unfathomable of a stat. I don't believe the Bears had a tight end with over 100 yards receiving on the season last year.
Hilarious. Wow, I'm pulling it up right now.
So Jimmy Graham, he was expensive, bad contract, hasn't done that much, but maybe Kmet wasn't there. The draft is a ways out. They couldn't go without getting a tight end at this point, right?
Yeah.
The nothing had worked, and we had some injuries. And after the Philly special or whatever the play in the Super Bowl was with Burton, we thought that was going to be our guy, and it didn't work. He got hurt and just didn't come back. But we literally did not have a tight end on the roster last year. So the numbers don't bother me because somebody has to play there, and it wasn't going to be the guys from last year. So the contract for Graham is just obscenely bad, but he couldn't miss out on another season without a tight end.
Yeah. 6 tight ends. No one went north of 91 yards. JP Holtz, the leader of that pack,
7 for 91. That's a good game, not a good season, but you're right.
If I'm not mistaken, he was an offensive lineman a year and a half ago, like a bum offensive lineman. So yeah, I mean, it's great that we had 6 tight ends that caught a pass maybe last year, you're saying, but no one over 91 yards the entire season. And that doesn't get talked about very often. No,
that's a great point. And I'm glad you brought that up because and so maybe their thing is in the same way that Eagles just kind of went all out on speed for the offensive side of the ball this year. Bears are like, we don't have a tight end. We're going to have a tight end this year. Come hell or high water. We're going to have a fucking tight end, but because that is key. And if Nick ends up being in the offense, he loves tossing it to the tight end. And I think you have a good tight end that really helps. You are immature, Ryan.
Sean is trying to achieve a record for the amount of times you said the word tight end.
But so I maybe, and I'm glad you threw that out there because that shines a little light on it. But talking about that regression when we're for the 2018 to 2019 season.
Yes.
Yeah. 2019, a 0 turnover margin for the Bears. Now, a lot of times that ends up regressing back to the positive side. And it wasn't like they were, Mitch wasn't throwing a ton of interceptions. It was more just like the Bears defense wasn't getting lucky with fumble recovery, stuff like that. And they just weren't forcing a ton of turnovers in general. And usually that evens out a little bit. I do like what they're doing on the defense, bringing in Robert Quinn, like Roquan Smith, if he can stay healthy. And of course, Khalil Mack is a beast. What are your thoughts on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, first of all, if we're focusing on the words that Sean's saying, I don't think regression towards the positive is accurate. I think it would be progression, right?
There you go. I always argue with Ryan on this.
You're correct. You would be if you're regressing back towards the mean. Yes, you would be experiencing progression or positive regression.
Either way, though, the defense. So this is the one thing that I don't think Pace gets enough credit for. So I'm a moderate Pace fan. He messed up the quarterback decision, but I was glad that he traded up to get the guy that he thought was the hero, right? You trade your entire draft if you get a Watson or a Mahomes, but unfortunately we took the wrong guy. So I didn't mind that, just the wrong pick, but the defense, he came in and the Bears defense had nothing. It was just bleak and bad. And he's put together what for this year, so this year and the last 2 years, going to be one of, if not the best defenses in football for that stretch. And I'm really, really excited about the Quinn signing because you looked at Leonard Floyd last year, and just a giant disappointment, another first round pick, him, Kevin White, and everyone the Bears pick in the first round is miserable. But the fact that we're bringing in Quinn and we're getting Akeem Hicks back healthy, which is, I think, is a
massive.
huge part that's not talked about. The one tough part we're going to experience this year is trusting a rookie cornerback on the other side of Fuller. The draft pick is out of Utah State this year, Jalen Johnson, as well as Eddie Goldman. He opted out due to COVID reasons. So we're going to have a couple question marks, a couple gaps, but every team is going to at this point. But I just absolutely love the front seven and Fuller and Eddie Jackson, and I think if they're healthy, that is what's going to carry the Bears, and that's why Mitch or Nick doesn't have to do all that much.
And Sean, you know I love my man Fuller on the outside, and the question really becomes: is the drop off in defense, is that explainable through the drop off between Fangio and Pagano, or is this just standard regression? We know, or standard variance. We know defense tends to be a little bit more variant than offense. And this team can very easily, with the acquisitions and especially the Quinn sign, I think with the return of Hicks and having Quinn, Jalen Johnson, he projects to be a good cornerback in this system, physical guy.
Yeah.
And I think if they can kind of prove that was just a year to year variance thing, they drop back a little bit. The pass rush gets back because of Hicks, because of Quinn. Of course, they still have Khalil Mack. They take that step forward, and maybe, it becomes a little bit more explainable as to why the offense kind of fell down real hard. I think, to me, other than, I was going to call out Hicks as being a real story as to why I think the defense will come back. That with a complimentary pass rusher, this defense is going to be really good. I believe in that. Even though Pagano is kind of an asshat, I do believe this defense is going to be really good. I would say, for me, just to quickly flip it around, the area where I have questions is, the offensive line, because I think either guy, you need the offensive line. And Sean, I wanted to ask you, because Juan Castillo, that's former defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles.
I did make a note of that, where that was kind of the beginning of the end of the Reid era in Philadelphia, when he transitioned Juan Castillo from offensive line coach to defensive
Kelly,
coordinator
right? That was
mid-season.
Kelly, right?
No, that was Andy Reid. That was at the end of Andy Reid.
Anyway, so I think, to me, like, I think the defense will take that step forward, assuming Pagano doesn't screw it up. I think for the offense, quarterbacks aside, can the offensive line do anything? Because I believe they were ranked 28th and 29th over the last couple of years in adjusted line yards, which is not a good number, not good for the running game. It's why Montgomery looked like a pile of shit last year. And I think, to me, like, that's more of the narrative than it is how well the quarterback's playing, because the quarterback will play as well as the line and the running game allows them to.
Yeah. When you mention the running game, I mean, there has to be at some point a commitment to it. I understand that new era metrics in football and Matt Nagy trying to do some high powered stuff. But the passing game, when you just sit back and that's all you do all game, every game, it's really tough for the offensive line to pass block every freaking play, but it's also tough to get anything going on the occasional couple runs. Right. So at some point you do have to give Montgomery kind of the green light to help control a game. And Nagy continuously gets away from that. And I think he got a lot of pressure last year and kept talking about how he's going to commit to the run game. I hope we actually see it this year because I think Montgomery can do some stuff on his own, but he's going to need that offensive line help. But at some point you got to commit to it and actually give it a real shot.
And I think, you look at his numbers, he's a guy that could very well be one of those guys that you draft a little bit later in fantasy. Sean has the opportunity, the couple things fall the right way, and his 242 carries for 889 yards, averaging 3.7 yards a carry and scoring 6 touchdowns last year, can very easily turn into 1,200 yards. 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, and that's a pretty good season. So I would say if I'm a Bears fan, that's the area where I'm really hopeful for. And the fact that, you pointed out some reasons why they might bounce back, and the schedule gets easier. They did have a tougher schedule in their division last year.
I think the way you're framing it, if you're optimistic about the Bears this season, is defense gets back to a high level, creates a bunch of turnovers. They carry that front seven, carries the kind of younger, inexperienced rookie cornerback you have there, and Fuller's pretty solid. And then on the other end, Mitch, or if it ends up becoming Nick, becomes like a better Rex Grossman. So we've seen that Bears offense when it's working. They have Allen Robinson, who I like in fantasy this year, who I think is a legit fantasy option. And even Anthony Miller, I think, could be a deep play, like a round 7, round 8 fantasy grab.
Maybe.
I'm kind of high-ish on this Bears team. And one last little note here. We talk about home field advantage. How much will it matter? How much it won't? One thing the Bears always have going at home, especially later on in the season, is the cold weather. And I think that will help them out. The Bears are 20-7 and 19-7-1 against the spread at home from week 10 onward versus dome or warm weather teams since 2005, including 5-0 in the last 2 years. So they get a couple of those still in the schedule. And I think that'll help them tremendously.
Should we walk through that schedule, Sean?
Let's do it.
All right. First 4 at Detroit, my Giants at home, at Atlanta, the Colts coming to town week 4. Oh man.
So we're 3-1.
3-1. I love
tremendous confidence by Reid. I'll go 3-1 as well. Again, I'm kind of down on the Falcons. Colts outdoors. It's still early. Giants, book that one. Detroit maybe a little frisky early, but again, I'm just still anti-Patricia.
I'm gonna say 2-2,
and so is apparently the majority of the team.
2-2 is probably fair realistically, because Stafford hasn't been hit yet, and he'll be healthy
Stafford,
which is unfortunate. But we're 2-2 or 3-1. That's at that point. I don't love the Colts matchup. I do like the first 3 though, if we can pull off from the Lions.
All right, next 4, Sean. Short week, Tampa Bay at home.
Loss.
At Carolina, at Rams on Monday night, and then New Orleans at home week 8. Is that late enough? Will there be some weather, Sean? What are you thinking for this stretch?
This is interesting because I was also reading more and sharp at a great trend of West Coast teams hosting, non-West Coast teams on Monday night, and how what a huge advantage that is, or just in prime time in general for them. So I think that Rams spot will be tricky for the Bears, and then the Bucks at home. Panthers on the road. Everyone's down the Panthers. I'm a little higher on them. Saints outdoor. At home in Soldier Field, I actually think they have a much better shot against the Saints.
Yeah,
Drew Brees later on in the season. So that being said, I think a couple of these games could be tough. I'll go 2-2.
I'm with you, 2-2. I think they win the home games, and I think they drop a shocker in Carolina.
Oh, I don't like that one so much. I will tell you, my favorite part of that schedule is the Rams game, because we get to go see what should be a really, really good football team and think, oh, thank God we don't have a quarterback with that contract, with that skill level. So at least our quarterback's option wasn't picked up and didn't give an extension. So
that's some silver lining.
Positive. Like, we don't have Deshaun, we don't have Mahomes, but at least we didn't give Goff a contract. That's my thought process.
That's what the Bears are hanging their hat on.
That's fucking lemonade right there, bro.
I like that.
So is that 2-2, Reid? Are you on 3-1?
I don't have any confidence in ever beating the Saints. Unfortunately, we've just been burned so many times. I think back to the playoff game, was it 10 years ago at this point, that just destroyed us. So I would say a loss to the Rams, loss to the Bucks, a win versus Carolina, and who was the fourth? A win versus.
All right.
Yeah, 2-2, I think. So I'm going to say right now 5-3.
I like it. Next 4, Sean, at Tennessee, Minnesota on Monday night, a later bye week, week 11, and then at Packers, Lions at home. We're getting into the meat of the schedule here. Tough non-conference spot there, sandwiched between a Saints and Vikings.
Right before
spot. Feels like a serious loss potential. I'm riding right down the middle. I'm going 2-2 again.
Yeah, I mean, I really like them at home against the Vikings. Like them at home against the Lions, but that Titan spot's going to be tough. And in Green Bay Monday night,
coming off the bye though,
that'll be tough.
You never know. They've played Green Bay tight. They just haven't closed.
Yeah,
the door.
I'll go 2-2.
Reid?
Yeah, I like the 2-2 spot. I don't know if we're going to lose to Green Bay or the Lions. We'll lose to one of them. I don't like the Tennessee spot there. So that's my perspective. I don't mind the first Vikings matchup so much, but in Minnesota, I don't love that matchup later in the season.
Last four, Sean. Houston at home, at Minnesota, at Jacksonville. Random late season game there, and then Green Bay at home. That's probably going to be a meaningful game. I mean, I think there's. This is like this could be all over the place. I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to be a giant pussy and say 2-2.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'll say 3-1. Bears maybe get a little bit. Well, you know what? 2-2. Because I had Minnesota going 10-6, and I don't think two teams. I'll have to go Packers Bears 9-7. They go 2-2 there.
Reid?
I think I have them at 7-5 right now. I think
that's right.
They lose to Houston. Matt Nagy shows that he's the worst coach in NFL. Getting out coached by Bill O'Brien.
Oh no.
They lose in Minnesota, but they win against the Jags and the Packers. So I think I have. I think that's a 9-7 record for me. I think
9-7. Sean, you and Reid 9-7. I am right at 8-8. Right at the number. Last year they went 8-8. Total was 9.5. This year's total 8. Plus 105 on the over, minus 135 on the under. Division plus 375. Conference 18-1. Super Bowl 40-1. And Sean, I got to be honest with you. You're going to see a trend here, but I'm thinking that this division as a whole is depressed, which makes me think the Bears don't have to poke their head up very high to have an opportunity to take the division down, which makes me wonder, do you maybe buy a little piece of this division?
That was my thought. Even though I only have them going 9-7,
the quarterback situation, Foles has never played 16 games. Trubisky, I think maybe, you have this situation where you start the guy with the higher ceiling, but then you're ending up with the guy with the higher floor. Maybe Foles shows out. To me, I know you're not going to let me pass, are you?
No.
What?
So you have them at 8-8. What are you going over or under? At?
What is the make the playoff prop?
Make the playoffs is plus 160 to make the playoffs and minus 215 to miss the playoffs. That's the
way you bet it. If they could very well, I would not be shocked at all if down the stretch we're talking about the Bears as a team that gets into the playoffs.
You're right. I'll take the make playoffs
when they beat the Jags.
Make playoffs at plus 160 and yeah.
So far, I have both teams going 8-8, and this is crazy.
Yeah. So my question on the 8-8 is they were 8-8 last year. Their quarterback play is not going to be as bad as it was last year because a couple things. They got a better backup just in case there's an injury or a switch. So Mitchell doesn't have to play the entire year if he's that bad. The coaching situation hopefully is better. The defense has some more depth and Hicks hopefully coming back. So do you see the offensive line might be the issue, but do you see this team as not being better than the team last year?
Here's my concern. My concern is that what happened with Nagy and his ability to, this is a guy who rose very quickly through the coaching ranks, and we didn't necessarily have a ton of game tape on the guy. And much like we see with quarterbacks in the National Football League, once we got game tape, the offense kind of fell apart. And I know it might not be the only reason the offense fell apart, but it's real enough for me to not be bullish on the over. I think if you focus in just on the team and the idea of this team is this was circled by me in red, regression indicators all over the place, positive ones, and an easier schedule. So yeah, while I agree with you, I wouldn't advise people to take the under, which has that minus 135 juice. Like gun to my head, if Sean makes me play every single one,
yes,
I would probably take the over before I took the under. But yeah,
what are you taking?
To make the playoffs.
Okay, but over under 8 wins.
It's a push, but I'll take the over.
All right.
Simply because I think this is one of these years where I'm gonna want to play the unders for the higher numbers and the overs for the lower numbers. So,
all right, Reid. Any so 375 the division, 1,800 for the conference, 4,000 for the Super Bowl. Any future plays you're recommending to your clients?
Yeah, I mean, you got Mitchell for MVP, right? No, I'm kidding. That's not even on the board, I don't think anymore.
I hope
I would. I do like to make the playoffs. I think only a couple things throughout the season need to go right for this team to be 9-7 or 10-6. I don't see with that defense, unless there's a ton of injuries or COVID opt-outs in the season or something crazy happens, which it's 2020, so likely. I don't see this as a 6 or 7 win team. I think the low end is probably maybe 7, but the low end is probably that 8 number. And I'm an eternal optimist, so take that for what it's worth. But good.
I was just going to say Gardner. My bookie has Gardner Minshew at 100-1, Derek Carr 80-1, Joe Burrow 80-1, Ryan Tannehill 70-1.
Ryan Tannehill. I mean,
Drew Lock 33-1, Daniel Jones 65.
Ryan Tannehill 70-1 is crazy because he was in the AFC Championship last year. Like I wouldn't advise it, but at 70-1, Jesus, there's some value.
Khalil Mack.
What is Khalil Mack for Defensive Player of the Year?
Oh, I don't.
If Hicks stays healthy and Quinn is really as good as he was last year, I think that there's probably some value there because I think he's underrated from his year last year, and all reports are, as they all are at this time of the year every year, but all reports are he's in the best shape of his life.
Oh, I love those reports. Love the best shape of their life reports.
Yep.
Anyway, I would say, yeah, since you made me pick, I'm happy to say over with the Bears and make the playoffs because I told you I have a soft spot for them.
Well, you know who's in the best shape of their lives? People who enter the Freeroll Football Contest with BetSperts. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest. You'll be entering your picks every week for the NFL season against the spread via the BetSperts app. But you go sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest hashtag subscribers only. Reid, appreciate you calling into the podcast. Where can people check you out?
So we're social on Twitter at BetSperts and myself is at Reid Rooney. But I would love for people just to download the app. It's free. It's a large social network, and I think you'll get a lot of gambling insights and connections throughout it. But I would really, really recommend whether it's new gamblers or experienced gamblers to really start to track their picks, learn from yourself and learn from other people you respect and can start to trust. So I do thank you for having me on. I thank you for talking Bears. I'm getting excited as my Blackhawks are probably getting eliminated. So on to the next Chicago disaster. But other than that, I just always enjoy talking to you guys and look forward to getting back on pre-Super Bowl week to talk about Mitch and how he's led us to the Super Bowl.
Well, we'll definitely have you on when the Bears are in the Super Bowl, Reid.
Shooters shoot, bro. Shooters shoot.
You got 4 months to come up, or 5 months to come up with a better nickname than Big Dick Nick for Mitchell, please. So.
All right. Thanks as always, Reid. Have a good one, man.
You too, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Giving a shout out to Ace Per Head. That's right. Thinking about starting your own sportsbook? You should. You can start it in the comfort and security of your own home. All you got to do is go to aceperhead.com/SGP, aceperhead.com/SGP. They provide you with a professional betting website. All the lines updated to the second, wagers graded immediately. They got top-notch customer support going 24/7. Some of the sharpest lines in the industry. Stop trying to beat the bookie and just become a bookie over at aceperhead.com/SGP. Top-notch customer support. They got it all over at aceperhead.com/SGP. Use that link and get up to 6 weeks free.
Just don't tell your clients about our podcast because
then they'll go bankrupt.
We're going to put you in a goddamn lock.
We want you to have a good experience starting your own sports book. Ryan, the Detroit Lions.
Speaking of sports book.
Yes.
Just Gamble. Feel like you're gambling when you're talking about betting on the Lions.
Well, and if you were fading the Lions straight up in the Matt Patricia era, certainly
it's working out well.
Certainly a good value. Matt Patricia, he is who he thought he was, right? 9-22-1 as a head coach.
Slob.
Another guy just trying to bring that Belichick discipline.
All right.
Here you go. I'm a Belichick disciple. I'm going to we're going to be the Michigan Patriots. It just doesn't work out right. And we can save the prejudging of Joe Judge for the NFC East podcast.
Well,
but when you come in like a tough guy, as grown men don't respond to that. You can pull that shit in college. Chip Kelly was able to pull it in college, but grown men don't respond to the
I think being
tough guy mentality.
Being a tough guy is one thing. I think being, holding players accountable, operating with the utmost transparency, that's a different thing. Now, I will say that I know you're trying to throw shade at the Giants right now, even though we're talking about the great city of Detroit and their football team, the Lions. Very close to my heart, just like the Bears. But this is because of Barry Sanders, big time Barry Sanders guy growing up, big time Calvin Johnson fan, Megatron. How can you hate the man? And the Lions just suck every year, and that's the bottom line. And you want to talk about Belichick assistants? 4 out of 22 seasons of Belichick assistants have resulted in a DVOA greater than 0. And only 2 out of 14 have had a positive defensive DVOA. So, or a negative defensive DVOA. So what does that mean? Well, they suck. They can't emulate it because Belichick's not there. I think going after the toughness angle works in this regard. He clearly did something to the locker room last year with Diggs. And there was no need for them to have to trade him. They just extended him.
Who are you talking about?
When they traded Diggs to Seattle, the cornerback.
Oh, okay.
And at the end of the day, that was not a necessary move. And if you're looking to back this Detroit Lions team, you're circling the regression, right? You're circling the fact that they were 3-8-1 in close score games. But if you listen to us, you would probably be like, well, maybe that's explainable because Patricia's an idiot, right? And I think to me, the one area where you have to pump the brakes on the fade job is, yes, they were a team that expected wins and Pythag wins had them about 6. So yeah, 6-10 still not a good team, but it's better than 3-12-1. They had a tougher schedule than they have this year, so another regression thing. But for me, it's the fact that Stafford missed half the year. And Sean, I'll ask you right now, in front of me, you're an NFL guy, you're a football guy. Name me one of the quarterbacks that started for the Detroit Lions last year that wasn't Matt Stafford. That's how bad they were.
They were bad.
Jeff Driscoll.
I do remember
a guy named Blow. Remember him? David Blau.
David Blau. Blogh. Yes.
These guys were the quarterback. So, I mean, in fairness to Patricia, and you can shit on the fact that he didn't really change his ways. He's really rigid. It doesn't seem to be working.
The pencil on a laminated card, which clearly doesn't work.
He's a real like dumb smart guy kind of feel. But Stafford was having the best 8-game stretch of his career before he got hurt.
He was quietly the QB4 in fantasy points per game in his 8 starts last year.
QB4 and absolutely. And I think his 11.1 yards per target led the league in depth of target. He was playing aggressive football. I think there was a lot of reasons to be stoked about this Lions team. And yeah, they still weren't great record wise at that point, but he's brought in a lot of people who now are more Patriot way guys, right? So maybe that's the reason we're feeling optimistic on the Lions this year. I was optimistic on them last year when their win total was 6.5, and that came crashing down. But they were more of a, they were an unlucky 3-12.
Well, yeah, when
team.
you lose your quarterback, certainly that's a big part of it. But if you're a competent franchise or even a competent coach, Tomlin is probably the great counter, right? Tomlin's a good coach. He had, fucking Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, probably comparable at the quarterback position. Well, yeah, because he coaches them up.
Well, and he wasn't,
and he doesn't get into it with players. He doesn't run Darius Slay out of town. Who, yeah, is he an all pro? No, but like certainly, you don't think this Lions team is better by having Darius Slay there?
Massive.
Now you draft Akuda, which that's a decent pick, but to like expect him to have a huge impact year one as a cornerback. We'll see, but I'm skeptical.
I think, the reason you're optimistic if you're a Lions fan is they just have more guys in place that understand what the system needs to be.
But they don't have a system. Bevel has a system. Matt Patricia doesn't have a system. And to your point,
from a defensive perspective, his system seems to be to sit back in coverage. They rushed 3 rushers more than anyone last year, and they were somehow more effective rushing 3 than blitzing, which is not normal. So I think he may have a system. I think that system maybe he's getting a lot of leash because this is now year 3. And to be fair, everything I'm saying, they've been shit. They've been shit. 28th and D.
Are you high on the Lions because Matt Patricia is a Bill Belichick disciple, and you're convincing yourself that both him and Joe Judge, their fates are somehow tied?
I think if you combine, no, I'm not doing that at all because I think they're completely different guys. One guy is #all rise, and one guy's a fucking nerd who likes to put a pencil behind his ear.
But he does the same tough guy things of like yelling at the players.
See, you're taking a headline. How you're disrespecting the great art of journalism right now because you are taking a headline and assuming a bunch of stuff. I'm sure you didn't.
That's how you process.
I'm sure you didn't watch the interview with Joe Judge. I'm sure you didn't watch any of the interviews with the players who said, "Yeah,
I've been on the Reddit.
Yeah, we basically it's accountability. We're okay with that. It's a 2-way street." All right. Not like Matt Patricia, who's playing fucking Dungeons and Dragons while he's putting together defensive game plans, not realizing the players he has on the team. All right. Now I'm not high on him for that reason. I'm high on him for the fact I'm high on the Lions because I think Matt Stafford still has some game. And I generally think the rest of the division is in the process of shitting themselves. Right. We talked about the Vikings and how they completely overhauled the defense and they still have Kirk Cousins. We talked about how the Bears, sure, there's reasons to be optimistic, but they still have Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles. There's not much there in terms of substance at the starting position. And then you look at the Green Bay Packers, who spent the offseason not shoring up their weaknesses, but drafting quarterbacks and running backs. So yeah, I'm relatively high on the Lions. But not because Joe Judge and Patricia are connected
in offensive line, according to Establish the Run ranking. They brought in Big V, who
I don't know if that's positive.
They gave him a huge contract. He's fine as a swing tackle, but he's not a guy you want to throw a ton of money at. And the thing with Stafford was they were super aggressive early on in the games, right? They would throw the ball deep down the field,
which is great. Deep
on first half downs, a massive 30.2 on his attempts. Up 5.5% from 2018. However, that all went away in the second half where they got hyper conservative, running on first downs and early downs 60% of the time. Like they don't know how to really do the full aggressive play calling. So I'm out on the Lions. I just don't see it.
But don't you see? All right. So
I see the narrative. I know a lot of fantasy guys are like Stafford was lighting them up. And then if you just bring Stafford back, I think they had a little bit of magic last year, but I think the team is so sour. Ryan, as much as my stomach gets soured when I upset my GERD, that I think is a comparison to the locker room. You can't win when you don't have the locker room, and Patricia just doesn't have the locker room. That's my gut handicapper coming in here.
Can I throw something? Can I just throw a thought for you to let rattle around your brain? What if? All right, so Stafford gets hurt.
Yep.
Stafford clearly a leader in the locker room. He's not there. Something clearly goes south on the defensive side of the ball, right? Perhaps it's just the fact that they took the opportunity to trade a team leader, a voted captain, which is like objectively stupid for Patricia to do. And then from that point, obviously that's going to cause this spiral. You don't have your quarterback to potentially bring some stability to at least one side of the ball. A lot of things that could have gone wrong went wrong. And while I agree with you, I think Matt Patricia is responsible for some of it. He's just gotten rid of people who didn't like that, and he's brought in more people that are aware of what that is because they played in that system before. And while I don't necessarily think Patricia is a guy that's going to have a long career, I think because the schedule has gotten hyper easy, projecting to be the 26th easiest schedule, and particularly early on in the season, I think there's a storyline here where he's hanging on because he's brought in enough of the right players to make this happen. again, I'm not looking to give them double digit wins, but when you're talking about a team with a 6.5 win total, it's going to be hard for me to find a reason to take the under here, Sean.
Well, imagine, let's say you're a leader of a country, right? And you have a lot of people that are talking shit about you underneath you, and then a lot of distrust, a lot of people leaking stuff to the press, and you decide, you know what I need to do? I need to clean house, right? I need to clean house. Need to bring in my guys, and you bring in your guys. Yeah. But those guys also hate you. Like it's just.
Do we have confirmed reports of new guys hating him already?
Dan Orlovsky, a former Detroit Lions guy.
Hold on. Again, reckless journalism. He's a cock sampler. He's used anyway. Give me the quote.
Says Detroit Lions organization, his problem begins with Matt Patricia. Who do you think these guys talk to? They talk to former players. Yeah. No one likes Matt Patricia.
Just real quick, Dan Orlovsky, the same guy who ran out of the back of the end zone.
Yes.
Okay. Just checking the source.
Yeah. Doesn't mean he doesn't talk to other NFL guys.
No, I mean, Matt Patricia, basically he's the Stephen A. Smith of mildly successful quarterbacks.
Oh, I don't even think I wouldn't consider him successful
to the NFL.
At all.
He's successful. You make it to the NFL, you're successful.
Right. So not successful as an NFL quarterback, but that doesn't mean.
But imagine thinking that you can critique anyone doing anything when you, as a quarterback, ran out of the back of the end zone.
Well, Ryan, that would be like someone saying to us, "Whoa, you guys think you can critique anyone in the NFL?"
No, that's completely different. That's completely different.
How's that different?
Because you at a minimum need to know that you can't run out of bounds willingly in right, like isn't that
Derek Carr threw the ball away on 4th down, and yet still people are hammering the Raiders over.
No, well, that's crazy. I don't know. I don't see what you're trying to do here. The Lions, they this whole division. You know my hot take for the NFC North.
Sure,
no one's going to be great.
Well, when has there ever been a great team from the NFC North?
13-3 is pretty good. They've won a Super Bowl, a couple Super Bowls, right?
Who?
The Packers.
Oh, that wasn't that recent.
Is that 10 years ago now?
Yeah, 2011, right?
Jesus. No, the Giants. Well, yeah, the Giants won that year, I think. Anyway,
I guess it happened in 2011.
Should we go through the schedule, Sean?
Sure, let's do it. Any key additions?
I mean, just a lot of guys who know how to play defense. I think Shelton, Trufant, Collett, like these are meaningful additions.
Chase Daniel, he's always good to bring in.
Well, I mean,
how is that guy still in the league?
But in fairness, it's an upgrade from Driscoll and Blau.
I don't know that to be true.
Well,
Chase Daniels
I can't prove it, but I watched Blow and Driscoll play last year, so
yeah.
Let's just go through the schedule. We're clearly not seeing eye to eye.
No,
with the Detroit Lions.
You're wrong, Ryan. The Lions are going to be bad. Sometimes you don't need a hot take.
I'm not having a hot take. And I was higher than them last year, so maybe I'm just gonna follow my own heart. First 4: Bears at Packers at Cardinals, Saints at home. Let me guess. You think the Trubisky's gonna come to town and beat them?
Yeah, I like that should be a good game.
1-3. Are you saying 1-3 then?
Yeah, 1-3.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not super high on the Packers.
I think they get
Cardinals, who I'm not in love with, but that
revenge spot, they get that. Listen, Sean, you love your close game regression indicators. 3-8-1 strong. I'm going 2-2 here.
Okay.
Next 4, bye week. I don't love the early bye week, but then we go at Jacksonville, at Atlanta, Indy, at Minnesota. This is a tough stretch. I'm going to go 1-3.
1-3.
Next 4.
And this is where, so just to clear, this is when Matt Patricia will get fired after he loses to Washington at home.
So next 4, Washington at Carolina, Houston on Thursday night at home, at Chicago.
Well, that's not Thursday night. That's Thanksgiving, but yeah, that's the morning game.
Thanksgiving at Chicago.
I mean,
you think they're going to lose to the Redskins at home?
I think they might. Yeah.
See, I think
that front 7 could really mess up that offensive line. I mean, that's a bit of a hot take, but I guess I'll give them 2-2 here.
I mean, Carolina, we think they could be a pretty bad team. I'm going to go 2-2. Wait, we have the same record right now, Sean.
Yeah. 4 wins.
Wait, I have you down 2-2, 1-3, 2-2.
No, 1-3, 1-3, 2-2.
I miswrote that.
Maybe I said
Green Bay. Last four: Green Bay at Tennessee, Tampa at home, Minnesota at home.
1-3.
1-3.
Yeah. In Tennessee in playoff time?
No, they're going to beat the Packers. I'm going to go 2-2.
So what do I have? 5 wins, 5-11. Sounds right for the Lions.
I got them going 7-9.
Half game over their win total. 6.5. You're paying a minus 155 on the over, so you're on the right side there, Ryan. Give me the under. With you're getting plus odds on the Lions under. God bless America. Give me the under. I may lock this up, Ryan, just out of spite.
Can I tell you the angle though?
Do you like the
Lions
division at plus 600?
Win the division at plus 600.
Okay, I'm going to write that down for Ryan. Division plus 600.
Wait, did you update my Vikings prediction to 8-8 because I said I think I should have made them 8-8? 7-9, baby.
Oh, okay.
See, this whole division is going to be just stuck in the mud. What do you have? What's their make the playoffs bet?
It's off the board. No,
really?
Detroit Lions make the playoffs plus 235. Oh man, could not pay me to bet that.
Give me that.
Okay, and you're on the division at plus 600.
I think it's not a horrible strategy to take the Bears and the Lions to win the division because I don't see anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the Bears to make the playoffs in the division at plus 375. Even though I have Minnesota to win more games, I just think at plus 375 there's actually a little bit of value where I'm not laying minus 135 on this Vikings team to win the division.
Yeah, and we're about to get to it, but this Packers situation is I don't know. The more I get into it, the more I'm just kind of for the first time in my life walking away from the beautiful Aaron Rodgers.
Well, let's get to it, Ryan. Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. They made it to the NFC Championship 13-3. Certainly didn't feel like 13-3. Pythag wins only 9.8. Again, another locker room which has clearly gone sour in spite of the camp reports that Rodgers is laughing, enjoying football again.
Saw a nice shot of his calves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're talking calves, we got to talk quads. And AJ Dillon, who was recently announced, had the best quads in the National Football League. Ryan, so disappointing that he stole that from Saquon Barkley.
Incorrect.
Warren Sharp had a great little nugget there. So, the 2019 Green Bay Packers,
13-3,
kind of came out of nowhere.
Lucky as shit.
One of
the luckiest teams in the NFL.
8-1 in 1-score games. Love to fade that hit there.
Second worst 13-3 DVOA. Second worst DVOA for a 13-3 team ever.
Yeah, and to that point, I was pulling up this stat here. So they had the previous year they were 6-10, or sorry, 6-9-1. Then they went 13-3. So in the last 30 years, there have been 52 teams to improve by 6 or more wins from one year to the next. Only 18 of those 52 teams improved to record at least 12 wins, like the Packers did, 13 wins. Of those 18 teams, 0 won the same number or more games the following year. All lost at least 2 more games the following year. 13 lost at least 4 more games the following year. On average, of those 18 teams that the Packers fit into this sample size, 18 teams lost 5.9 more games the following year. So the regression indicators are all over the place, and LaFleur clearly not an analytics boy by any means. Who hates LaFleur more, Aaron Rodgers or the analytics community, Ryan?
The analytics community.
They hate him.
I think the Aaron Rodgers thing's the ruse. I think they're secretly in relations,
close friends,
in relations,
running the ball on first down. Also, Matt LaFleur, the guy who had Derrick Henry splitting time with Deion Lewis in Tennessee. I mean, I get it. Rodgers is a lot better with play action, but man, with play action, 10.6 yards per attempt, 92% success rating, compared with without 6.6 yards per attempt, 57% success rating. So yeah, it makes sense. Get Aaron Rodgers involved with the play action, but man, the draft picks make no sense. Even Jordan Love already, LaFleur is saying he's admitting that Jordan Love's footwork is a work in progress. He's a first round pick, and even LaFleur is saying that in a press conference. That's striking, right?
I mean, I get it. This is the world of like if you want your guy, get him. But to your point, I think it's been pretty clearly defined and documented how much of an advantage it is to have a guy on a rookie deal. It is odd that Green Bay would just be mortgaging 2 years of that because they've already paid Aaron Rodgers.
Well,
even stranger, they were a 13-3 team last year, regardless of how lucky you felt they were. Pythag expected wins, both had them around a 10-win team. Still pretty good. Why not do what we've seen teams do in the past and use that equity on positions that you need and also can help right away. We've seen receivers step in and be effective right away. Aaron Rodgers,
especially with a veteran quarterback,
never has any receivers. I mean, Devontae Adams had a ridiculous 22% of the target share. If you include the 4 games he missed, if you take those out, it was almost 30%. And Rodgers, when passing to him, is great, and he's just not good passing to anyone else because he hasn't had anyone else because they're trying to be too smart. They're trying to use 5th round picks, 6th round picks, 4th round picks. So yeah, to your point. And then the running back thing that makes no fucking sense.
Aaron Jones is good, and I feel like he's almost getting slept on in fantasy. I mean, he had probably way too high a touchdown, so that's going to regress a little bit. But he has legit pass catching ability.
But even if you look at the analytical, the advanced analytics on the run, he was good. Like he was good last year. This doesn't make any sense. Jamal Williams is effective.
He's a good second back.
And the strangest part is you draft in the 2nd round a running back who, he was great at Boston College. Boston College backs don't do shit in the NFL, and he has zero ability to work in the passing game. And maybe I'm wrong there, but I watched him at Boston College. He's not that kind of guy. So I really don't know what they were doing when they could have used that capital on we got 2 more years of Aaron Rodgers, 3 more years of Aaron Rodgers. He's 37, I think. Why not go for a fucking Super Bowl? That's the point.
Yeah,
I get it. You want to have your guy for the next guy, but LaFleur might not make it to that point if he squanders this year. And really, honestly, Sean, if this team goes 8-8, does he get fired?
Here's what I'm saying. What happens first? Because I just can't imagine a world where LaFleur and Rodgers are both back next year. I think either Aaron's going to ask for a trade or LaFleur won't be back as head coach. I just can't imagine a world where both are back. There's just clearly they don't like each other.
But and I think what's going to help LaFleur is people just. It sounds like no one likes Rodgers. It sounds like Rodgers is a dick. But it's still it's odd that you would want to move on from a guy that I think. Again, there's only so many quarterbacks that can probably get you there, and I think although maybe his play has diminished over time, he still has a pretty high ceiling. I did pluck one stat out of the Football Outsiders chapter, Sean, that I found interesting. On target throws, 68.2% left him 4th in the division behind Mitchell Trubisky.
So you were hating on my boy Mitch. So if you're a Packers fan, if you're a Packers
35 drops last year from his receivers, they didn't do shit to help that.
Yeah, if you're a Packers backer, the offensive line really, top of the in the league. Pro Football Focus has them 6th. Establish the Run has them 9th. So they're up there as far as solid line, and the defense did some right things. Smith Brothers solid up front. I think the issue is though, I mean, they're a weird team in that they play dime 52% of the time. And to me, this Packers team, like the book was kind of out on this Packers team. Like when the Eagles went in to Green Bay and beat them Thursday night in Lambeau, all they did was pound the rock. And to the 49ers, that's all they did against the Packers in the playoffs was just run it down their throats. Like it seems like there's a very obvious game plan to beat the Packers on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know.
And
maybe we're getting a little too cute, but
no,
I'm just not
you
super
called
high.
that a real interesting piece of info, and I wanted to double check the numbers in my notes. But this was a defense that was carried by their ability to turn teams over. And Sean, that tends to be something that varies year to year. And when you have a defense that is quote bend but don't break, right? Make big plays, turn the team over, but you're still giving up gobs of yards. You're still not hyper effective everywhere on the field. that's the Packers. So if you kind of remove the big play element of this defense, they go back to being an average defense, maybe even below average. So to your point, what happens if the pendulum swings, right? The reason the Packers really popped their head up last year was the defense, right? The offense was obviously good, but the offense is going to be good. You have Aaron Rodgers, you have an effective running attack.
And I think the book is out on that defense though.
Well, and that's the point.
And they lost linebacker Blake Martinez, who is, if you remember from our Madden Sims, Ryan, he was just dominating for the Giants. He's on the Giants now, right?
He is on the Giants, but he was a tackle machine for the Packers. In fairness, he was not a tackle machine in the Sims. But you look at the record of this Packers team: 13-3 last year, 6-9-1 the year before, 7-9 before that, then 10-6, 10-6. Their Pythag wins always sitting below 10 in the 9 range, except for those depressed years. I think my point is to say that if this defense pops back down. And they over regressed, right? They went way past. They got super lucky. They won games they shouldn't have. But if that defense takes a step back and the offense turns into be a little bit more average, I would say that I mentioned it. Why I like the Lions. I like the Lions not so much because I like the Lions, but I think there's so many reasons to think all these other teams can take a step back. The last thing I'll say, Sean. Their schedule got tougher as well. They had an easier schedule last year. I think Reed was complaining about this earlier. So I don't want to get too cute. Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers, but it really alarmed me to see some of the numbers that might indicate that he has lost a step. And that's why we're seeing him get drafted in the 12th quarterback range, which to me is still phenomenally ridiculous that I can wait in an entire fantasy football draft and still end up with Aaron Rodgers. Especially in best ball, right? He's still going to have some games, but sometimes you can, there's clearly some bad blood between him and LaFleur, and maybe it's a lover's quarrel, Sean.
Who knows?
Anyway, so Devin Funchess too, the big receiver they did bring in.
Yeah.
He opted out.
Lazard, kind of an interesting, maybe an interesting fantasy play.
I just think we're
deep DFS sleeper.
We're gonna
my boy Jace. Do like Jace Sternberger.
Well, and that's tight ends in general. LaFleur. I think I saw 500 was the most he's ever had. 500 yards for a tight end.
And Rodgers not a man who likes the tight ends.
And he likes the tight end off the field. On the field, he has only once had a 700 yard or someone go north of 700 yards from the tight end position. So.
All right, let's do it. Let's talk schedule, Ryan, and then lock dog tease for the divisions.
A lot of time talking about the NFC North. The winter is coming, Sean. First 4 for the for your Green Bay Packers. At Minnesota, Detroit, at New Orleans, Atlanta on Monday night.
2-2.
They have favorable home games. They probably get it done.
Win the home games, lose the road games.
Let's go 2-2. Next 4 another early bye week at Tampa, at Houston, Minnesota at home, at San Francisco on Thursday night. Holy shit. 1-3.
Yeah. 1-3. Jesus.
This is tough. Jackson. When does Love get the nod? Jacksonville at home, at Indy, Chicago at home, Philly at home. I feel like this is a must get. Gotta go 2-2 here.
2-2. They beat the Bears and the Jags. And shout out to Magic Man Blanco. I know he's a huge Packers fan. Probably not going to like what record we end up with, but
at Detroit, Carolina at home on a Saturday, Tennessee at home. Ooh, little LaFleur revenge spot there. At Chicago to end the season. I'm going to say 2-2.
What do I have them at so far?
This is crazy. I got to go 3-1, right? If I go 2-2, I'm at 7-9 for the Packers.
Yeah, I'll go 2-2. 7-9 feels right. Wow,
it's too much regression.
Nah, that's.
Do you see what I've done, Sean?
Didn't we? I gave you that.
No one in the division went over 500.
Warren Sharp. I gave it to you. The average of 5.9 decrease. I gave you that sample set. Numbers don't lie. You do have 3 teams going 7-9 and 1 8-8. Ryan, so you're predicting that no one in the NFC North will have a winning record.
It appears
feels
that
like
way.
A bold prediction.
It feels that way.
A hot take indeed.
Oh, hot.
Well,
hot.
I'm glad it played out this way because it really begs the question. Like I think I'm going to go over to my bookie and wager on the Bears and the Lions to win the division.
Yeah, and I'm not touching the Packers playoffs either way because with this 7 team, the Odds Shark has the odds to make it at plus 150, or them to make the playoffs is minus 150. To miss it is plus 115. I just don't want to touch that.
Only plus 115.
Yeah,
that's interesting though. That's telling you a story, Sean, that people are not hot. 7 teams make the playoffs, and you're saying that their chances to miss the playoffs are right around 47%.
Yep. All right, my locks.
What a shit division.
My locks. Give me the over on the Bears, 8 wins, and the under on the Lions, 6.5. And then as far as futures, Bears to make the playoffs, Vikings to make the playoffs, and Bears to win the division at plus 375. Bears to make the playoffs plus 160. Vikings to make the playoffs minus 135. Kramer, what are your locks?
You know, I feel like I'm high on the Packers all the time. I'm going to lock up the under.
Okay.
On the Packers, do something a little different because I don't.
And then your Lions, obviously, you love that over, right?
I mean, to your point, I don't know if it's a lock because of that juice.
Okay.
But if you're asking me to put a second one in,
sure.
I would say Packers and Vikings go under.
Okay. Ryan is not high on the NFC North, and so your futures, you're recommending that people bet the Bears and the Lions to win the NFC North.
Yeah. I think you can. I think you'll do all right if you take both teams to win the division, both teams to make the playoffs.
Okay.
Is that crazy? That feels a little controversial.
Yeah. Well, and honestly,
Bears make the playoffs at plus 160. I mean, you could do worse. I think with the, I feel the reason I didn't
to me, Lions to make the playoffs at plus 235. I mean, how many times has the Lions made the playoffs? And granted, there is an extra playoff spot, but you're talking about like historical significance of the Lions making the playoffs, and you're only getting plus.
You gave me the same shit when I said the Rams would win the division a couple years back, so I'm feeling good about it.
All right,
I'm feeling good about it.
You're feeling great. Hey, make sure you enter the Freeroll Football Contest. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest. If you're one of the early listeners, the link may not be up there quite yet, but that's where you'll go to sign up. So sportsgamblingpodcast.com/contest. Again, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast. Football is fucking here. Get excited.
Thank you for participating in the Sports Gambling Podcast.
And for the Sports Gambling Podcast, I'm Sean, stacking the money green, and he is Ryan.
Halfway home, Sean.
Kramer. Let it ride.